Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Just waiting to make sure that the feed here is definitely live and running. It's kind of got a little blinky thing happening here. Okay, welcome. Welcome to all the new people that are in this group. So I'm sure that you know me if you're here, but just in case you don't know much more, then this is Grace Bell and the Eating Peace group. Uh, I suffered horribly from disordered eating. I call it disordered thinking, disordered thoughts about feelings for many, many, many years, and feel like I was really actually pushing myself to being in a state of where it was a matter of life or death, losing a tremendous amount of weight, being extremely thin, being in a hospital for a while in my 20s, in an inpatient treatment program, and just in that state of real extreme unrest around food and eating. Extreme. So, coming in here live will probably happen on Fridays. So you can just consider that and think about it. And anytime you want to during the week, leave a comment or a question about what you might want to ask, what you might want to hear, what you'd like me to speak to. And my favorite tool for understanding the mind is using the work of Byron Katie. And step number one is even seeing what it is we're thinking in the first place. Because often when we have compulsion running, there is a sense of, I don't know what I'm thinking, I just know I feel awful. I feel awful. I'm so unhappy. I'm so unhappy. I feel terrible. I'm so unhappy. And the thoughts are very bitter, mean, violent, self-critical, critical of the world, critical of everything, desperate, like sort of needy, very apathetic, like who cares, it doesn't matter anyway. And you notice these sort of swings that we have when it comes to food or eating. I like noticing that how we are being with food and eating, often the thoughts we have about food and eating and our bodies are the same as we have about other people or other difficult situations or about life in general. So we just finished the immersion part of the eating peace experience, eating peace process. And basically we have contact very deeply. 5 times a week we're live in some format or another. And we all have a small group where we share quite a bit. And now we're moving into like sort of a period where we are just meeting once a week. But why I'm even mentioning that is, hi Jenny, why I'm even mentioning that is we were talking about goodbyes, like having a change happen. It's been real deep immersion for 3 months, and now we're going to go to once a week and still active on our writing forum, and I'll have office hours, and so there'll still be regular contact for several more months. But it's different because the meetings aren't set up as so frequently. And then what happens within, if you think you're going to miss something or not have something so often, just noticing, aware, goodbye. What do we believe about a goodbye? Often it's the same. Just see what you think right now about a goodbye. How do you generally feel about goodbyes? And sometimes people notice those typical things that we see. I thought it was very interesting that some people say, I hate them. If there's a big goodbye, I just like quickly blow through it and, just leave. Don't even talk to me about it. Just go. No hugging. I don't want to. Sort of that kind of avoidance or sort of a slamming shut of the thing. Let's just get busy with other things quickly. If you imagine you're saying goodbye to people that you really care about who've been staying with you for a while, and you just go like, okay, just I don't want to make a fuss out of it. Or dreadful feeling of longing and emptiness, and like there's a void inside the minute they leave and the door shuts. So sad, so terrible, so filled with longing, so uncomfortable. Imagine somebody dying. That's a really the greatest goodbye we ever have, that any of us ever experience, right? Somebody dies. We feel like it's over permanently. And just watch the grief and the dread and the anxiety. So some of us have like hyper anxiety, the things over, it's missing, I didn't take advantage of it. When they were here, I should have done more, I should have been closer. Just watching those kinds of thoughts. And now noticing, have you ever had that same kind of thought that you believe about a goodbye? Have you ever had that about food, a meal? Now think about my father dying. I always thought it was fairly young, of leukemia, like 30 years ago. And that it was just felt like such a tragedy, such a grief. You know, for the rest of my life, I'd be so sad about this. And that what didn't turn out to be true, because I met the work at some point. It's like, oh, it's a terrible tragedy, family tragedy, very difficult. No, nothing's changed, that it was so sad, heartbreaking, very heartbreaking. This wonderful person called my father. But I had things like, you know, I'll never talk to him again. I didn't get enough time with him. It's pulled from me forever, too soon. Well, I had those thoughts about food. On the side that would, like the part of me that would force myself to diet and go without pleasure and be extreme about food and eating and all that I had done that was kind of dramatic with food and eating. So just something that's interesting to notice. So I thought, you know, holding on one of the sense of any of that, we can take it into the work. So imagining that you've said goodbye to a person and noticing that moment right after they leave and what thoughts are that you have about it, that it's very uncomfortable, it's terrible. This moment without that person in it is worse than the moment with that person in it. I am abandoned. I am lost without them. Life is just not as good without that person. This moment, my relationship with me and this moment is empty, less than good. I don't like it as much, not as fun. That can be the same as after a meal is over. You're pleasantly satisfied when you don't like this moment that doesn't have food in it anymore. The eating was really good. That was more pleasurable than a moment without eating in it. Now, a lot of us being all at home all the time right now, eating and food is very available. And I see all the memes coming through, just like you, people making jokes and everything about it, and sometimes not so funny, right? If you have this compulsion, if you've noticed that restless anxiety running, or you know what, the empty time, not enjoying empty time, not enjoying it. And so then whoosh, here comes a desire for food. So let's just look at that empty moment. When you think something's no longer there that used to be there and it was better when it was there. That transition that happens constantly in life, all day long and every single day. There's an end of the day and that day's over, and then we're going to start a new day tomorrow. So just noticing a discomfort. I don't like that moment as much. It's not as good. So we'll use the 4 questions. Is it true? Is it true that that moment isn't as good as one that's filled? Boy, that can sure seem true, right? filled with connection, people, love, contact, joy, pleasure of eating, if it's food, but just noticing even people seems really true. Can you absolutely know that, though? That moment is missing something, absent of something. Just a quiet moment when you're satisfied and food is not needed, or there's the person and they're not there. Can you absolutely know it's true? That moment is less than another moment. People have heartbreaking dread about partners that they've lost. I remember having that. It's like shocking how intense it was. My first husband left the marriage. I'm so abandoned. And it would be like, fortunately I had the work at the time. And I began to look, wow. I just think having a moment all alone by myself, with myself, is far worse. Like, what? Here I am, I'm the one who's been abandoned by my mate. So terrible. Isn't that fascinating? Can I absolutely know that's true? No, I can't know it's true. Even if you say yes, just notice what happens when you believe it. The story of something's missing. I am abandoned. Things are not working out for me. This moment is very quiet and I'm unsupported. Whatever it is that you think. The good happened and I have no support. I have no pleasure. So here's the amazing question, number 4. Who would you be without this story? Who would you be without the story? Something's missing. I didn't take advantage of them when they were here. I'm lost. I'm abandoned. Who would you be without that thought? You can imagine a person, being there. You are quietly in the moment. Who would you be without that story? This moment is not as good as one that contains a person, that contains food, that contains something pleasurable. Who would you be without that story? Amazing. And you don't even have to be there. That's what I love about the work. You're just imagining, using your imagination. What if this was okay and just as good? Connection, silence by yourself, alone, just as good as being with person, experience, food, pleasure. Who would you be without the thought? This moment isn't as good as a moment of connection or fullness with others. Who would you be without that story? I just like noticing that there's a full range of experiences here on planet Earth as a human. Very, very quiet moments where nobody else is in them. All of us have that. We're even sleeping for hours. Even if you're a short sleeper, it's hours that you sleep. With nothing and no consciousness at all and empty, quiet. And then there's very, very full moments, very active, very busy, very full. And there's everything in between. If they're all okay. I love how Byron Katie says, just simply noticing the mind having its evaluation of everything in every kind of moment, including these moments, and saying, not good enough, don't like it, avoid it, got to get away from it, it doesn't matter, who cares? It does matter. This is good. This is wonderful. This new present moment where something or someone has left or more food is not required, so the meal is over, anything like that, is just as wonderful as the previous moment that was more full. The movie is over. I remember my mother said, I barely remember it. It's kind of funny. I was 5, but I don't have strong memories of it, although I do remember the movie so much. But apparently, my first movie ever in my life I went to in the big cinema was Mary Poppins. And I was absolutely stunned. And I remember the movie. I think I saw it again later, but I remember the movie very, very well. It's the one with Julie Andrews. And so apparently, when the movie was over, like sort of a virtual reality experience when we first ever see one, right? Human being on planet Earth seeing their first movie. I came out of the theater and I just stopped and screamed my head off, which is really funny because I was a very quiet kid for the most part later. I don't know if that was just because I kind of pushed down lots of intense, strong feelings, but my mom said that I was so upset about the end of the movie. Just wailing, inconsolable. So to have compassion about that, the beauty of that experience, of just noticing it and just letting that be there, but then even entering the turnarounds, that moment is just as good as the one where we're occupied and busy and feeling connected. I just find making friends with this empty or noticing the silence is the most profound way to healing any kind of compulsion possible. Actually making friends with space, emptiness, slowness, the end of something, end of a meal, end of pleasure, quote unquote, the end of it. What if it's not the end of it? So that can be our turnaround question, to find turnaround examples today of how wonderful it is to be surrounded by extra space and time, how it's safe to be in silence, quiet to be with ourselves, just noticing it's just the mind and thinking that is freaking out. Just the mind. I mean, without thought about what's going on, everything's actually very fine and very safe and very comfortable. Do we like silence? Yeah, I like noticing. Where did you get the idea that you don't like it, this emptiness, or that you don't like this space? If somebody is gone, how is it that they are actually here? So my father who died, how is it they are actually with me? I could ask my dad any question. It's 30 years since he died. I could ask him a question and then listen and kind of get the sense of how he would answer. Today, I could do that. If I had a question for Dad, I could do it. And so could any of you with somebody who's missing. You know, what do you think? And even just get the feel of that with yourself. So safety in the moment that's quiet, safety in the space, having a different surroundings, safety in the presence of food. Just noticing here, right here, within, food is no longer required. A meal has been eaten and now that's over. And can I be curious about this empty, silent moment? Maybe I get to, because I'm home a lot, just sit for 2 minutes in silence and see if I can go longer. Meditate. Be here with it. Be here especially at the end of a meal. Just close eyes, sit quietly, wait. How astonishing. Nothing required. Don't need to do anything. Feeling the support of that space instead of, oh my gosh, this is dangerous, I don't like it. It can be very, very, very much of a relief. So who would we be without our story that goodbyes are troubling? It can be hello to the new moment. It's a new moment. Life has changed a little while. Over there, there was a meal, there was people, there was activity, there was something very entertaining, and now that part's over and there's a new moment that has different things in it. And if I'm not judging that these things there's something missing here and not enough, and I need more, and it's empty, this moment is just as interesting as that other one. And now I'm here. So, fun thing to do is if you can't quite find that and you're just noticing a big difference between this moment, present moment, and the one that's filled with people and connection and all those other things, is just to write down the thoughts that you have about what's wrong with this more empty moment. And then the 4 questions and finding our turnarounds. So fascinating. All right. Let me know how it goes. Lots of love.